Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Action Comics issue 1078 by Mark Waid, Enrico Tamaki, Clayton Henry, Michael Shelfer, Skylar Partridge, Matt Herms, and Marissa Louise. The Phantom's story continues for another week as back on Earth, the Super Family prevent the alien villain Grax from crashing his ship into Metropolis and obliterating the city by trying to throw the ship into space, but as soon as they do try and take the ship's weight, they find that because the sun is slowly decaying thanks to what ether is doing to it, the last of their solar energy reserves fail and they fall out of the sky. Never did I expect to see Grax make an appearance here in a modern day Superman comic. He's a very old school Superman villain that everyone seems to have forgotten about, all but of course Mark Waid, who remembered him, as well as various other old school characters he's been using through this book, World's Finest, and his Justice League book. It's just a fun little one and done appearance, although there are sort of hints that maybe he could come back at some point in the future, since the villain actually isn't there. He's like a hologram who has sent the ship after Superman's city and is like putting it in danger while he's off somewhere in the galaxy. So he definitely could come back, and that would be a really nice change of pace from the usual rogues we get across Superman stories, something a little bit different. As the family's powers give out and they plummet to the ground, Superman, returned from the Phantom Zone, flies in and saves them all. Knowing time is of the essence, he takes them, as well as Natasha Irons, the Flash, and Mr. Terrific to the Fortress of Solitude and fills them in on what's been happening in the Phantom Zone and with ether. Thanks to Mr. Terrific keeping an eye on the sun as it began to decay at the beginning of last issue, he detected a small device within the center of the sun which Aether is using to drain its energy, and it's still operating despite Aether's death within the zone. The heroes begin to form a plan, with Superman tasked with destroying the device to reverse the process and save Earth and the Phantom Zone. But there's just one problem though. Thanks to the decaying sun, Superman's powers are in a diminished state along with the rest of the Superman family, and he won't be able to withstand the pressure and immense heat of the sun in his current state. I really do like how Waid is presenting all of these problems within this book, and it's things that Superman and the other characters have to overcome in ways they aren't just like, oh, we'll just use our superpowers to deal with this sort of thing. Like we've seen Clark using his intellect and his strategic mind to overcome Aether and his problems that he had over on Krypton as well. It's extremely fun, and I'm sure it's a very challenging and very creatively stimulating process for writers like Waid to do this sort of stuff and not just resort to, oh, and then Superman punches it and he wins. You know, you've got to actually think about it for a little bit. Of course, Superman wants to head into the sun regardless of his powers being there or not. And with the help of Mr. Terrific, Natasha, and the Flash, they are able to make a special protective suit that will help him survive the sun. Mr. Terrific also tells Superman that destroying the machine will actually create a huge backdraft of energy which will destroy most of the Phantom Zone, killing all its inhabitants despite stopping the growing mass within it. We get a neat bit of Superman family internal drama here, as Connor just kind of offhandedly suggests that maybe they just let the criminals die since it's no real loss, they are criminals after all. But Superman won't have any of that, asking Connor who will they become if they don't fight for everyone and give them all a chance to do what is right. This is where Superman comes up with a rather daring yet kind of genius plan as he gives Supergirl and John the Phantom Zone projector, tasking them with taking a Justice League starship to the nearest planet with a red sun so they can use the projector to evacuate everyone to the planet where they would not have any powers, so they would just be easy to contain. Still a pretty dangerous idea, but it's a smart one to keep the Kryptonians contained until he can figure out what to do with them. And I think this is the beginning of Waid moving on from the Phantom Zone as this eternal prism system. We've seen this build over the last couple of issues with Superman questioning the ethics of the Phantom Zone and if it should be used in this way, and then his father also doing the same thing, and it's beginning to sort of seed this idea that maybe it can be used as something else. And we've kind of sort of seen some of the ideas that he's going to be using the Phantom Zone for over in his Justice League book, where in that book is kind of hinted at that it's kind of like a sort of pit stop, sort of gateway area for criminals that are transported to there before going on to other prisons. And it sounds like this is where it's going to go, and it sounds like it's going to be a bit more hospitable from now on, and I'm intrigued to see how he's going to sort of square this circle, since it's not something you can just like click your fingers and it change the entire zone. Like we've been shown that when when someone tried that, it almost destroyed the zone. So how is this going to be fixed? It's very intriguing. Clark's plan is overheard by the bottled city of Kandor, whose representative, Breezan, who happens to be the adult daughter of Roseanne, the man who tried to take Jor-El's inventions and ideas back when Superman was on Krypton 2 issues ago, tells Superman releasing the prisoners is illegal unless they have been officially pardoned. Roseanne's daughter being a roadblock for Superman in the present is kind of a fantastic idea, and it really brings this whole sort of generational drama to the book. You know, Jor-El fought against Roseanne and his archaic and greedy rulings. Now Clark is doing the same against his daughter. While the woman knows they cannot stop Superman from going on with his plan, if they do though, they will be forced to exile him from not only Kandor, but all of Kryptonian culture, effectively excising the House of El from their culture and society. This is a really surprising turn of events, as Superman could be exiled from Krypton and his heritage and cut off from it, you know, a big part of his life, and it's nothing small, and I'm intrigued to see what Wade does with it and gets to explore more of it, since we don't really get the chance here, as Superman wants to go ahead with the plan, and he finds Flash and Mr. Terrific and Natasha have finalized the armor as best they can in the small time frame he gave them. So the Man of Steel suits up and gets ready to save the sun despite the consequences. Supergirl and John Mimo take the Justice League starship out of the solar system, and while Superman flies into the sun, we get a really cool moment where Superman calls Mon-El, who has kind of overheard everything that has been happening thanks to the technology he had on the Phantom King's ship that allowed him to sort of see into the corporeal world, and he knows what Clark is going to do. And he kind of has like a heroic moment where he knows he can't leave the zone because he is still poisoned and he can't just evacuate the zone. So he decides he wants his friend to not worry about him and to just save the others. And this conversation is overheard by some of the other prisoners on the ship, and I'm not really sure what to take from this, since it could be one of two ways. The first being that the men Mon-El has been commanding, hearing their self-proclaimed leader standing up for them and making sure that they are saved over himself, might sort of turn the tide on them, and they might decide we're actually going to help Superman and Mon-El here. But I think it might be the other way, as we've been shown time and time again that all of these people just resort to killing, and that's kind of like that was kind of like why Ether turned on them and everything, that all they did was kill. And that could definitely happen here, and they'll try and kill Superman or Mon-El. I do want to think that maybe this is like, you know, Wade writing sort of like the cycle is breaking and they're going to break out of that cycle and prove that they can be rehabilitated, but I don't think that's actually going to happen. John and Kara Mimo get a cool moment as well, where Kara reiterates how revered Kal is on Kandor, to the point where they make him very uncomfortable when he visits, as they consider him like a god and they treat him as such, all because he saved them from Brainiac. But despite that, however, she knows that Clark feels very upset and almost betrayed in a way that they would want to exile him for trying to save the Zoners. And I really like how Kara puts it, how she sees that he is just doing the same kindness to these Zoners as what he did for the Kandorians and saving them and rescuing them. But these Kandorians don't see it that way and actually see it as like a big betrayal, which shocks him, because he would have thought that Superman would have imparted some of his wisdom onto these people and shown like him showing kindness to them would allow them to show kindness to others. You know, shocked him that that's not the case at all. And as I said before, it's a thoroughly interesting idea to have Superman face exile from his own heritage, and Wade has to explore more of this in coming issues. This isn't something you just set up and then just not really do anything of substance with. As Supergirl and Superman arrive on the Red Sun planet, Clark speeds into the sun, feeling immense pain despite the armor, which begins to burn off around him, leaving him unprotected and underpowered in the heart of the roaring sun. John and Kara Mimo land on the planet and deploy the Phantom Zone projector and get ready to greet any of the oncoming prisoners, yet no one steps through the portal. As Superman soon spots the device, and using what strength he has left, he smashes it to pieces, deactivating Ether's energy siphon. With the sun returned to normal, Superman's powers begin to flood back to him, and in doing so it allows his vision and hearing to focus and allow him to see various Phantom Zoners arriving out of a portal, having used Ether's device in the sun to travel to the sun and not the Red Sun planet. And in doing so, they are giving the same powers as Superman, as they come for the son of their jailer. This is like the worst case scenario for Superman as well, a bunch of killers, all who have his powers in the sun, ready to kill him. Either the next issue will be all out action, or Wade will pull a bit of a twist and hey, maybe my first theory that I talked about earlier was right and they will actually help Superman because of what they heard Mon-El doing for them. I don't think that's going to happen though, but leaving us here on a cliffhanger leads to some fun theories like that, and I can't wait for the next issue. After Superman's adventure into the sun, Mariko Tamaki's Supergirl story returns and the Woman of Tomorrow is put into a dreamlike state by prisoner 8912. And the minute she is forced into this realm, Power Girl senses something is wrong, having used her telepathic abilities and multiversal connection to Kara to help connect her and free her friend from the ethereal prison. I do really like that it's building on all of the stuff that we've been seeing over in the Power Girl book and the lead up to that book from Leah Williams, with the connection between her and Supergirl and how they sort of rounded out that circle in a really satisfying way, where Power Girl, or Paige as she's going by now, was giving a unique set of abilities that help separate her from Kara a little bit more and make her her own person, and I like that's coming back here and being used to help Supergirl. With that being said though, I don't think these interesting story ideas are being implemented right, especially all of the stuff that we've been seeing of this being wanting Kara to kill her. We saw at the end of the last issue that this being needs Kara to kill her in order to break the cycle of fear and anger, and in this issue the prisoner just tries to kill themselves by crashing their ship into a planet. So if the prisoner could just do that themselves, why didn't they? There needed to be that thing where it's like, oh, I can't actually kill myself because something is stopping me from doing that and I need like a third party to do it. You need that sort of idea to be shown here, but that's not what's being shown here at all. On top of that, we don't actually even know why Kara has to be the one to kill this being. We saw connections to the Woman of Tomorrow and how this being's brother saw rage and everything in her, and we get to see that here where the prisoner tries to manipulate Kara into killing her by giving her a great rage in her heart against this being. But again, that's just completely deflated when Power Girl again returns and just, stops that from happening. Completely deflating any tension here, which is a real shame because again, there's some really cool ideas in this story. They're just not being A, implemented rightly, and B, it being stretched out too long as a weekly series. It was not meant to be a weekly series. This is like a 3 or 4 part story that's just being petered out into now an almost 10-week series. Action Comics issue 1078 was a fast-paced, action-packed issue that had Wade put Superman through his paces, diving into the history with Kandor and dropping a big new status quo shift for Superman and his Kryptonian heritage, which if properly followed through on in upcoming issues could lead to some really compelling drama and explore the concept of Superman being a son of two worlds in a really interesting, new, refreshing way. The Supergirl story, however, continues to kind of trudge along at a really snail's pace, not really delivering anything new. The ideas that are presented are interesting, but are immediately cut down by things that just, drive tension away, like the inclusion of Power Girl and her kind of Deus Ex Machina powers there with her telepathic connection to Kara. And as well, we just need some more answers on what this prisoner is, what Kara's role in killing them will do. Just give us some answers for once. I am going to give this issue an 8 out of 10.